Welcome to another edition of The Greater Work, the audio outreach of Christ Worker Ministries. Listen in as experienced employee and minister, Sean Gibson brings biblical insights to help you worship God both in and with your labor. Now, let's get to work. As we start up a brand new year, we are so very excited about all that God has in store for you and your family, and especially your work life. In the beginning of this new season, I want to share something with you that I believe will revolutionize your walk with God and your work life. It's a concept that I call pruning. And if you allow the Spirit of God to use pruning in your life, you will see results that you never imagined. Let's go to the scriptures and listen as Jesus discusses pruning with his disciples. You can find this in John's Gospel, chapter 15. I am the true vine, and my Father is the keeper of the vineyard. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, and every branch that does bear fruit, he prunes to make it even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word that I've spoken to you, but remain in me, and I will remain in you. Just as no branch can bear fruit by itself unless it remains in the vine, neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, and you are the branches. The one who remains in me, and I in him, will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If anyone does not remain in me, he is like a branch that is thrown away, and it withers. Some branches are gathered up and thrown into the fire and burned. But if you remain in me, and my words, they remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it will be done for you. This is my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit. And also, you get a chance to prove yourself that you are my disciple. You know, a few years ago, I was visiting my mother-in-law, and while I was there, I asked if she could allow me to prune some of her plants, specifically some rose bushes and fruit trees. To be honest, growing up, I saw my dad prune plants, and when he would cut a tree or a bush back, he would do so that it made it look like a lifeless stick coming right out of the ground, so I obviously couldn't do that with my mother-in-law's plants. I decided to get online, read, and even go on YouTube and learn about proper pruning techniques. While each tree and each plant has very specific times of year in which things need to be pruned, and even they have different methods in which they are to be pruned by, the concept of pruning is simple, and it can be broken down into an acronym that is called the ABC method. A is for assess. It means you make a judgment about the tree or the bush. Is there any disease? Is it in the correct position? Can you identify the central leader, as what they call the core branch? I'll talk more about that later. B stands for bad branches. I'm getting real technical here, but it means to remove any unhealthy branch, both damaged or diseased, and anything that just kind of brings the plant or the tree down. C stands for competing branches. Any branch that may be competing with the leader branch, that needs to either be pruned or greatly reduced. Pruning in your life is always done very purposefully by God, and the desired result is always the same: more fruit. Sometimes as Christians, we may be fruitful in accomplishing many great things in our professional lives. However, deep down, we might have taken on too much. We quote scriptures like, "For I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength." But if God has not called you and obligated you to be in that position, my friend, he's not going to strengthen you for that workplace activity, especially if it's not part of his calling for you. If we are going to allow God to prune our life, and in this case, our work life, we have to ask some very difficult and poignant questions that will require complete and total transparency and honesty, both to God and to ourselves. Let's use the ABCs of pruning to help us in this process. Looking at the A for assess. When we assess the condition of our professional work life, is there anything bringing the disease of sin into our work life? Are you in the correct position? What is the core branch in your life? The core branch, again, it's not the trunk or the stem, but instead, it is one of the few branches that comes off the main trunk or the stem. It gives structure to the tree. It is used to feed other smaller branches and provide strength to hold the fruit up as it is developed. In our work life experience, the core branch is your primary job title. And the smaller branches, well, those are all the other duties that you actively are involved in with your role. From time to time, smaller branches, or as some call them, sucker branches, have to be removed in order to maintain the health and integrity and the contour of the tree, or in this case, your position. Looking at the B for the ABCs of pruning, We're going to be taking notice of the bad branches and assessing the unhealthy branches, especially those that are damaged and diseased and that need to be removed. Getting rid of the rotten branches, it keeps the tree healthy by getting rid of the dead wood and the disease. This is done so that the nutrients in the tree can be focused on what should stay and keep those things healthy and alive. Bad branches in our work life can mean the activities, the relationships that we know don't work, and no matter how much energy we put into it, nothing comes from it. It's a task, it's a relationship, it's even a business account that you're working at. No fruit, no benefit, and no good result. This thing, you probably need to prune it because it's taking a lot of your workplace energy with it. And finally, let's take a look at the C, which is competing branches. Now we have to ask ourselves, are there any other competing branches with our core branch? If so, they need to be pruned. Especially true in trees. When two branches try to occupy the same space, pruning a competing branch will allow airflow through the tree, preventing rot and fungus from setting in. When looking at a competing branch in our work life, these are the ways that we do our work that frankly may not be Christ-like. Like fudging the numbers on a report, not being transparent with our clients, and allowing greed to take hold of our hearts and let it also be the motivator of our work duties. Money, money, money. Basically, anything that is competing for the place in your heart that can only be filled with God and His principles. While pruning, let's be honest, it seems hard, but the process of pruning will always give us a significant yield. Let's talk about those. We find that in John 15:8. The first thing, you're going to glorify God the Father. Number 2, you will bear more fruit than ever before. What you thought was being taken away from you, my friend, it's a setup. You're being set up so that you can bear even more fruit. Number 3, you prove that you are a disciple of Jesus Christ Himself. As we embark on this new series called Pruning, the key to workplace success, my friend, I encourage you right now, get alone with God and allow Him to guide you with the ABCs of pruning in your career. Thanks for listening to The Greater Work, a Christ Worker Ministries podcast. The Greater Work is supported by hardworking listeners just like you. To learn more about Christ Worker Ministries and how you can become part of our growing outreach, visit christworker.org.